Howdy all, it's 5:01 and we are going to kick off today's compensation meeting, March 30th, 2026. We're in the BPUB Annex Boardroom. First of all, can we have, well, I guess we don't really have a quorum, do we? Do we have any public comments?
No public comments.
Okay. Moving on. Okay, moving on, we'll go on to item number 1, the presentation and discussion of the 2025-2026 Internal Market Study Proposed Implementation. Is that you? Hi.
I'm struggling here. I'm getting there. Sorry. Chairman, board members, good afternoon. My name is Sergio Delgadillo. I'm Division Manager for Administration, reporting to the HR Division under the direction of Claudia Lujan. And I'll be presenting both items today, and Ms. Lujan, third one. Just to start with our strategic business plan, 2030. Of course, this one and the next one align perfectly well. It's employee engagement and development. And most of our strategies are focused on culture and engagement. We're very strong there, but we can't left behind compensation as one of the key components of engagement and reward. So you'll see that we are going to be strictly talking for this item on strengthening retention, talent, and market pressures, and of course directly linked to this strategy. We started a market study around a year ago. We came to this board with preliminary results. We were still really begging for information to other utilities. We did a very comprehensive analysis. And beyond that, we make sure that we receive from all those different utilities actual compensation. Typically what you do in a study is that you'll get a range, and then once you get that range, you struggle to position those employees within that range. And that's still part of every study, and it's still part of the struggles. But knowing the actual compensation is key because you know exactly where this employee sit within this range. It could have been that there's a wide range, but they sit at the entry or they sit at the end versus just the market, which it's typically just the average of those points. We did our study and we looked at line work, energy system operators, supervised control data, NERC compliance, and information technology. Our focus today is implementation of the line work study. On the right, you can see all the different cities that we looked at. You can see that there's a big space or gap in between BPUV and the other stars in that map, and that is because a lot of those areas do not compare to our business. They're either privately owned or they're co-ops, which is a different pay, different compensation, different structure altogether. What we found is that we do have a competitive compensation package. There are differences in between our package. We have some wins. We have some areas of opportunity. With the support of this committee and the regulatory committee, we've managed some gains within our findings, like for example, our employee tuition assistance program that we just recently enhanced. And that was supported really by this study as well, where we saw some improvements. But there are other areas that we need to make sure we work on. One of the main things that we see a big opportunity is working conditions. So of course pay comes from your hourly rate, but there's other components on working conditions such as standby pay, callback pay, or even shift work differential. And those are areas that we've not yet explored, or tackled, better said. We have explored them, or tackled, and we'll continue to see that. We also notice that there's other areas where employee engagement is key, and we're strongly working in those areas as well. Other parts of these conclusions have to do with for some key functions, we found out that others are doing a very on-schedule recurring study, for example, line work, where they have this kind of coalition of cities where they're looking at it every 12 to 18 months. So we believe that it's necessary to do the same. You'll see within this implementation report that we are closing the gap, literally, and we are very aggressive at that, and that is with the support of this board. This is a budgeted item, which means that based on our preliminary findings, we were awarded a budget for implementation. And what we're going to be reviewing today is how we're going to accomplish that. Before jumping to implementation, I just want to share this quick graph. And what I'm showing is electric and water wastewater operations. On the top, you can see our electrical line workers job family. And then on the bottom, you can see the water wastewater operations job family, moving from the entry worker or the maintenance worker up to the latest level, which is management. And of course, the industry does call from some separations. There's a difference in between managing the one on the electric side. But you can see this color coding that there is a big gap or dividing between both. So I'm just highlighting this because we do believe that our next step is to revise that water side of the business and align that better with market. But this is not the focus of our presentation, nor an aha moment, it's just what is coming. So going back to line work, this is a critical role. They do support reliability. This is a safety function. Every line, every issue with the line represents a safety issue when they're on the floor, and these are the guys that take care of that, definitely. And when we have impacts on compensation gaps, we are seeing turnover within this job family. We are losing talented employees just because of pay. Most of our line worker at the foreman level are already eligible for retirement, and we need to make sure that they stay with us because compensation being an issue is not a good reason for them to leave. We are aligning skill and experience to the reward, as you'll see on the next slides. And of course, this is a strategy that we need to support, as just said. Others are doing it, and I believe that we should do the same. Going to specific findings on the line worker compensation, what we saw is we had around the 24% gap within the line workers job family. And that gap stretched a little higher on the entry levels, up to a 35%, but the average was 24. We're proposing that this implementation aligns with market at the higher levels, and not so much at the lower levels, but there is a reason for that. Either way, it is going to support retention. This is a process that we're making sure we're doing it the right way. We actually met with the stakeholders, we met with management, we met with employees, we discussed our benchmarks, we discussed some job descriptions, we discussed what we're seeing out there, we heard their opinion, and we've asked for their support, and I can tell you that the electric foremen, which are the leaders, and trusted by their teams, they are very supportive of this process as well. They're very happy to hear that we're taking care of them, and they're very happy to see the way that we're conducting the analysis. Of course, information, details, implementation specifics have not been shared, but the overall has created a lot of support and endorsement among the actual stakeholders of this process, which again, it's supporting that retention after all safety. Like I said, this is a budgeted item, and just for the line workers, we're looking at $753,000. And let me tell you how that's going to be rolled out. So very busy chart. I do apologize, but I thought it was easier to have it all in one. We can divide the line worker job into 6 steps, starting from electric maintenance worker at the bottom of the table and ending at the electric foreman certified at the top of the table. And this would be what the market is calling for and what the average market would be after implementation. And you can see that the strategy focuses on closing the higher 2 levels at 98% with market. The next ones are at 90%, and then the entry levels at 80%. And the reason for this is, of course, not every job, although you're looking at the job families and doing a market study, it's a 1-to-1 match. And we found that the entry levels is where we see the majority of the difference within the other benchmarks, because they all have different entry levels and different skill sets that they require. And then they align as they progress through the job and they learn the skill. BPUE does have a certification program. We have around a little bit above 130 individual modules that our employees go through, and they test over these modules and they do skill tests. And based on the progression on this program, they'll be advancing to the next level and the next level. And of course, there's compensation tied to each one of these milestones. So every number of modules and every skill test or some skill test would move them to the next step within a 12-step process.
How long does that take, that process?
The least that will take them, it's around 4 years
Okay.
and a half, the least amount of time. And that would take them up to the line worker certified, not the foreman. And then for the foreman, around 8 years,
8 more?
give or take, 4 more. But that's the least. That's a very aggressive path where they're moving through the modules, and that will be around. So the idea of implementing it this way is that they'll incentivize these lower levels to continue through the program and move fast through it until they reach that market point that we're showing there. Like I said, every single one of our employees are working through that program, and for the implementation, we actually went through that analysis of where are they at, what should be the milestone for this program based on the compensation that we're seeing in the market, and we restructure the whole program with new milestones, with new pay milestones for each module based on range penetration, taking them from a 0 range penetration at the entry up to a 50% range penetration at the top or the end levels, which is what you see out there when you're looking at the actual alignment with market, that it starts averaging up. And what you see there is the results of a preliminary implementation with actual pay resulting in those numbers that you see there. So we've gone through those analysis already with a lot of data points.
Can you go back? I just want to make
Absolutely,
sure
sir.
I understand. So we have the market actual average. So that's pretty clear. It's from the survey and external comparable organizations.
Absolutely, sir.
And then BPUB to market average, what are those numbers? Those are actual?
That would be after the implementation. That's going to be the end result. That's
Okay.
what the average of employees' pay is going to look like. Doesn't mean that everybody's going to be making 114. It could be that some employees are making a little bit above 100,000, but some might be making around 120,000. The average would be 114.
You don't happen to know what the averages are now, do you?
Yes, I do. And they're
I
a
mean,
little-
it might be nice for comparison, just like let's pick the line worker certified out, maybe non-certified and certified.
So just some math, based on the slide that you see up here, you can see the actual
Okay, there we go.
money that is getting increased, so that would be kind of what you add to the average. But, well, this is more of just one family. But I would say that the line worker certified, it's averaging like 89,000, around 88,000. And our line worker foremen, we have actual inverse compression. We have some line workers making as much as some foremen, and this is all getting fixed through this process as well. Mr. Martinez, you had any additional questions?
No,
on this?
and the market alignment is based on the BPUB to market average, where it lies in relation to the market average, right? So the 98% is basically 114 divided by 115.
Exactly, sir.
Yeah.
You got it right. That's exactly what it is. And of course, that's a compilation of around 69 salaries being analyzed and averaged through each one of the individual buckets.
And then you were talking about modules. What?
Yeah, so basically, like I said, when you're looking at the implementation, there's a lot of data points that need to come into place. When we have a line worker program where employees advance through this program through 12 different steps, and we're figuring out where are we going to place these employees based on the market information and their position they hold on the current program. So that's how that comes into play.
Sure.
We redesigned the program to make sure that it aligned with market, and then we looked at each one of our employees'
Their
place in that program,
Yeah.
and that's how we assess pay. There is an exception because, again, once you become a certified line worker, you're now a certified line worker, you're out of the program. You have to continue education to continue your role, but you're not advancing anymore. So once they reach that, we looked into range penetration based on tenure in the job, and that's how we create that separation or decompression within a very small margin of around 25 from 50 to 70% range penetration. So a very small margin. It's not a big separation, but it's enough to create that extension. And like I said, this methodology has been discussed with the staff, with the team, with stakeholders. So we create that buy-in. We've had in the past good intentions, but we've not gone down, and sometimes we implement, they don't understand what's going on, then they see the pay and they see the difference. So we wanted to get ahead of this and make sure that we had very clear understanding, because this has to create the impact that it should create. And this should be an engagement activity and opportunity. And this implementation is going to do that. We have high expectations, and the staff is really supportive of this process, and they're very excited and very grateful with this board and the executive team on promoting this.
Okay. And the modules basically translates to they have to meet certain requirements to advance, or modules are just the categories that you have here based on percentages, or is there like a...
Modules would be an actual, imagine curriculum. So you have a curriculum with 148 classes.
Okay.
So each module is a class. Every set of different modules, some might be 12, some might be 40. It all depends on each one of the levels. They take them, they test on them. Upon completion of some of the modules, they'll have to do a skill test and be observed by the foremans, let's say climbing a pole, making a connection.
Yeah.
And that's how they start moving through this program.
Okay. That was it for my questions.
Sure thing. Within the market implementation, of course, we have other jobs that relate somewhat or a lot to the job. In this case, what we're bringing up, it's the actual substations and relaying. That team does not have a program. We're working on a program for them as well. But they are part of the same division. They are operational. They're doing substations and relaying. So we're also including them in this implementation, leaving space for that program to come. So you'll see that being proposed as well. And we believe that this is, again, going to support the program, going to support the implementation, create the right engagement for it, and make a win-win scenario for all. The implementation summary, you can see that line work administration, we have 2 employees, 59 employees under field operations, 3 employees on the substation and relaying administration, and 11 employees on the field operations, substations, and relaying. The overall implementation is going to be $865,000 change, including benefits already. So,
Do you know how many openings we have in each of these positions?
I would lie to you if I tell you those numbers, but I could find out. We
Okay.
are, I think we just hired like 4 ground workers recently, so we're pretty close to 0 right now. Like I said, we have been creating a lot of expectations. We have engaging a lot our leadership within that chain, and I think that's created a lot of support and expectation, of course. And I think that after we implement this, hopefully we'll have way less and less and less. So at the end, what you can see is that we believe this implementation is a well-structured one, that it provides and supports growth within that job family, as you saw the 80, 90, and 100% market alignment. We have our implementation plan, it's funded, and what we want to do is adopt that recurring 18 to 24 market review so we can make sure that this does not happen again. And with that, I can entertain more questions.
Just realized how bad this looks. We have 2 electrical engineers here, and we talked about the electrical system. Do we have an equivalent study for the water folks? Because they count too.
For the water? No, that's exactly what I was showing you exactly here. And of course, we won't left aside when you look at management, we'll look into those. We have looked into engineers recently. I think May last year we came to this committee as well.
Okay. So we're mapping, the linemen onto onto the water staff as well.
Yes, of
Okay,
course.
okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Good,
We
good, good.
won't, we,
Just wanted to make sure.
we need to
because-
maintain our network. The way we just show you that we had to look for a sample for substations and relaying,
Mhm.
which was not part of the study. We don't have any benchmarks, but they do relate and they share the same pay plan and they are aligned. So we need to make sure we maintain that equity. So the same happens whenever we looked at any position,
Okay.
as long as we can afford it, of course. So if there's no questions, I can move to the next item.
Yeah, I guess one comment question, I guess it is a question, but, so we, based on our observed performance as far as turnover and all that, we've looked at this category in particular, and it looks like there's others that we're also gonna be evaluating,
Yes, sir.
correct? Because I know in the past, we've had, you know, the, I'm not sure what words we use, but maybe the inflation adjustment, the performance adjustment. So even with that, there's still significant differences in these categories.
So, talking to the line work, that's a hot market right now. There's a lot of demand, little offers,
Yeah,
so that is
with all
driving
the
costs.
electrical build-outs and everything.
On
obviously,
that
yeah.
side. What we're seeing on the water side, and although it's not a one-to-one, we are seeing our employees being offered positions while working on the field. There's a lot of construction happening today. You've seen it going to the island, you've seen it going through the beach, in Boca Chica. So, and we're seeing that those rates are absolutely higher than ours. I don't know the benefits side of it. I'm sure that our benefits are gonna outshine any others. But money in the pocket definitely becomes a reason for seeing turnover. We have seen our water side some turnover. I don't have exact numbers, but I can tell you that last month we had around 13 separations, which is common for the month, but higher than expected. And it speaks to that development happening in Bronzeville and pulling that field work out. So,
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to
Yeah.
kind of get a high-level understanding of, you know, why this is a little different than what we've kind of worked on in the past.
and does that
Yeah, that
answer your
answers my
question?
question.
Okay,
so,
perfect.
I do want to add a little bit more on the industry standard, what's going on. In talking to some of my counterparts throughout the state and throughout the nation, some of the utilities have not been able to keep up with the turnover, and they've outsourced this functionality completely. And they've informed me that they're paying more, obviously, when you outsource it to contractors. We still have contractors that we're utilizing. The intent when the board gave us additional positions was to bring it in-house, but because of all of the different growth, we do not foresee at this time doing away with any of the contractors. And it's also good that we have a contractor in case we need to augment during a hurricane our staff. Whenever there's any type of general emergencies, the people that we end up allowing to leave to serve on those general emergencies have been our contract labor and our internal workforce stay here. So with that, I do not want to lose this functionality within the organizations. It's very important that we keep up with the industry's trends, pay structures, and they're just going really to neighboring utilities, to other publicly owned like Magic Valley or investor-owned utilities that are in the area, and other contract labor when they send them out. But this is something that should be looked on regularly.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially right now with everything going on. So, thank you. Yeah, no more questions.
Thank you. Do I move on?
Let's do it. Item number 2, I'll read it out loud, actually.
Thank you, sir.
Just forgot what my job was. Presentation and discussion of the proposed fiscal year 2026 merit implementation.
Thank you. And for the record, Sergio Delgadillo, Division Manager for Administration in the HR Division. Looking into strategic alignment, of course, it is the same strategic focus area. It's employee engagement and development. This time we focus on accountability, recognition, and growth. And of course, we also look into reward. This is part of our policy. It's our Policy 7, reviewed 2020. It does speak to our performance appraisal process and to the possibility of a compensation increase based on that performance appraisal. And then looking into the community charter, which will be reviewed next, it also speaks to that oversight responsibilities of this committee to look into a budget for performance-based merit. And we are hoping that we continue to have this support. It is very exciting to be here for the second time after over a decade that we've seen a merit. And I believe that there's a lot of gains from this type of programs for our employees. What we were looking for is, of course, to make sure we have employee engagement. There's been a lot of lessons learned from last year and this year because this is something that is new to us, new from a decade ago. And with the support of this committee again and the executive team, we've seen after a decade change, and now we're on the second year of this. Transparency and trust, it's a key objective. We need to make sure that employees understand how this is applied, and that the methodology is fair, and that it builds trust among all. So you'll see some changes I'll be presenting next that highlight this specific category. And of course, we need to make sure that it creates alignment with our objectives and values. Again, it is funded for fiscal year 2026. It was placed in the budget and it was approved as a budget item. It has to be based on exceeding performance expectations. It has linked directly to the employees' appraisals. They have to see an appraisal. Employees who do not have an appraisal are considered to meet expectations but not exceed expectations, which are the least. We might have like 4 employees in that category. They didn't start their own. And then merit compensation is based on increase to employees on an hourly rate. So let's speak about the eligibility criteria. So they need to have been hired 6 months before the end of the fiscal year. They cannot be a director and executive. They need to have a performance appraisal, and they need to score in a scale from 5 to 10, a 7.5, which means that they need to exceed in some categories, but not all categories. What you see next is the performance appraisal scores. That's where employees landed. So we have 9 employees that were a little below, or not a little below, they were below the meet expectation thresholds. We work with this departments, with these employees to make sure that they're able to move out from that status into a meeting expectation status. And then we have 179, 33%, that are rated between a 7 and a 7.5. That means that they exceeded in some expectations, but not enough to be considered exceeding expectations for the purpose of this implementation. And we have 64%, 340 employees that met the threshold and are eligible for a merit increase based on the parameters I'll be presenting next. Last year, we used a single table, and employees were, like I said, transparency is key. We're able to see where they landed in the scores, and then based on that table, they would see what the increase would translate to for them. And like I said, there's lessons learned. And what we found is that we have some easy raters and some hard raters. And then the distribution was not, I guess, necessarily equitable among divisions and among budgets. So this year we're proposing a merit increase methodology that creates 8 different tables. And the way you allocate a table to a division, it's based on the number of merit eligible employees they rated. So basically it's a calibration that is happening based on eligibility. So those easy rater will have a lot of qualifying employees and will land in a different table than those hard raters. And again, this is lessons learned in creating that calibration. And I'll show you exactly how that works. It continues to be a performance-driven increases. So the higher you score, the higher your increase would be based on the table where you land. And the increases are going to range between less than a 1% point and 3.5% points. Showcase in general the methodology. We have our table 1, which means that 3 out of 10 employees were rated in a way that they're eligible for an increase. That means above a 7.5. And then what we do is after that, for every additional employee per 10, we change them to a new table. So this translates into the 8 tables that you see right here, where those employees where 3 out of 10 were rated as eligible are going to see an increase in between 1.75% and 3.5%. And those divisions where we have a lot of employees eligible, are going to see that our maximum increase is going to be equal to the minimum increase of the first table. So again, it's forcing that calibration through easy raters and hard raters. To put it into an example, this would be a division or a department where some of the employees are eligible, but not all. That's 7 out of 20 or 3 out of 10, so they'll belong to table 1. In this second example, we see that there's more green, so that means more eligible employees. 12 out of 20 or 6 out of 10, that means they belong to table 4. And then on this last example, we have most employees eligible, where you have 16 out of 20 or 8 out of 10. That means table 6. And for purposes of showing what that translates to, well, we have 3 employees rated 8.5. Each one of these employees will see a different increase based on the table where they belong. So like I said, this is a forced calibration. Granted that we were very intentional about calibration this year, we held at least 20 sessions and trainings for our employees, so they understood how calibration or how training would be done. We increased our number of comment boxes in our performance appraisal from around, let's say, 500 to review to around 5,000 comment boxes to review. We did do a review of each evaluation to make sure that we were looking into those components that showed that there was an exceeding expectations for a core competency. So all that work was done. But the end result is that we needed to make sure that we ensure a fair distribution of the merit budget. And what you see here, it's how that translates into basing ourselves on the payroll distribution column. That's basically how much of the total payroll for those eligible employees, or not eligible employees, employees who participate in the performance appraisal, the payroll represents. And then on the merit distribution, you can see how much of the available budget for a merit distribution is being allocated to each one of these divisions based on this distribution. We do see a separation between the operations section, and that is really mostly accounted to the line workers. The operational division was a very hard rater. However, we treat it as a non-issue since we just presented the merit implementations, which is going to impact that compensation.
So I'm going to push back against that just a little bit to say, hey, the one place we've identified that we have our problem in retention is the line workers because they can go get elsewhere and get more money. So, if that, that distribution difference, 62 to 57, is taking away real dollars that would go to the line workers, I would push back a little bit and say, maybe revisit that.
But would wash away with the merit implementation because we're looking at a full market, with the line worker implementation because we're looking at a market alignment.
Right, they'll see a pay bump and they'll see the merit increase, but, will that get us to where retention isn't a problem anymore? Or will that, will we still be coming in under, what other folks here are offering?
I think that as we just mentioned that there's a lot of lessons learned, this is opening an opportunity for higher training on those appraisers within that division so that we can do better and better and better next year. We are focusing more on tangibles and more measures versus the soft, subjective appraisals for next year. And we're finding out new ways of doing this.
Okay, and then along those lines, a 34%, 33.9% group of individuals who aren't eligible for a merit raise, are we offering them anything to help them get over that hump for next year? Or are we saying, hey, you guys didn't perform well enough, good luck, see you next year?
Like I said, we did have a lot of training for performance appraisals, and we did focus a lot on providing feedback as well. And feedback provides that opportunity for employees to improve. What we had missed in our previous performance appraisal was setting up goals. This performance appraisal includes those goals,
Okay.
which will support these employees on hopefully improving that performance and
Okay,
meeting the threshold.
okay, good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I had a question on this slide in particular.
Yes, sir.
Because you said it translates to about 3 out of 10, right, that will be receiving the merit increase?
No, sir. That was in related to the tables. When it's 3 out of 10, it's table 1, 4 out of 10, it's table 2, and that's how it applies to. No, here it's really 6 out of 10 employees, where you have 64% of eligible employees. That would be the,
Okay, so yeah, that was an example only, it
yes, sir.
wasn't the overall,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
That's how they would land in each one of the tables based on how many eligible employees we have for each.
Yeah, because
And that's
if
forced
if you do
calculation.
the count here, unless I'm not understanding it,
Uh-huh.
there's 340 that would qualify
Yes, sir.
for merit. And merit is above the inflation adjustment as well?
Yes, sir. It is.
Okay, because normally merit is, I would say, it's a smaller percentage, no? I mean, here you're giving it to 6 out of 10? Is that what the number is, like overall, is it?
The total employees that are receiving a merit, it's around 6.5 out of 10, just based on the 64%. Yes.
Okay, because you have the pie chart there, so all the blue is
4.
64.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, yeah, these 9 employees, are they on performance improvement plans now? Do they have, like, if they perform below expectations, I would assume that we're kind of looking at possibly separating from them if they continue at this performance level?
Yes, and I might have used a wrong word. There's development opportunity versus not meeting expectations, but not necessarily separation. We work with them, and some of the employees that were scored like that, and remember, this is based on the previous fiscal year, have already shown an increase, an improvement in performance. We've worked with some of the employees, it was really a learning opportunity for us as well in HR that they were in that category, and we're working with management to support that. But some we knew, some we didn't know, if that makes some sense.
Okay, I mean, I just would hate to have, let's say, 8 of these 9 employees in the exact same position next year. So, you know, the goal is if they're not on a performance improvement plan of some sort, yeah, there should be a good reason as to why not, I feel.
It's to support them. Absolutely, I completely agree with you. Yes. Yes.
Thank you for that observation. One of the things that I've worked with my staff in HR on is that these same individuals should not have 2 years in a row where they're not meeting standards at a 7 or above. So we are working with those individuals and/or their supervisors. We're rolling out some leadership training, some coaching training within this next evaluation cycle so that everybody has the tools in the toolbox to be able to address this. Also working with the individuals so that they understand maybe this is not the right job for them, but they might have a different job that they might shine in the organization, so we're not losing them. So we have a multifaceted approach on it.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Great.
Are there any more questions that we can entertain?
No?
Well, with that, I'd say thank you to you all.
All set, thank you very much. Okay, on to the next item, presentation, discussion, and possible recommendations to review and update the Compensation Committee Charter.
Thank you. For the record, Claudia Lujan, Director of Human Resources. I believe I have the easiest item on the agenda this evening. It's a housekeeping item on the revised and updated Compensation Committee Charter. The biggest item is that it reflects the possibility of a former board member. They may be appointed as an optional 4th member of the committee. if confirmed by the board, and serve on the committee as provided under Rule 14, and some minor grammar updates.
Do you have any
Yeah,
thoughts?
no, we've discussed it, and we were expecting for all the different committees
Yes.
to update their charter, so
With-
I'm good.
With your approval, I'd like to put it on consent agenda for the next
Yeah,
board
this one
meeting.
should be pretty straightforward.
Perfect.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and on to the final item, presentation and discussion on scheduling the annual evaluation of the general manager and chief executive officer and addressing compensation. And
Yes,
Juan.
good afternoon, board members, or committee members, I should say. This is on the agenda just for purpose of scheduling. If you all recall, the board is responsible for the evaluation of the general manager and chief executive officer, along with addressing compensation as warranted. We've done it at different times in prior years, just due to scheduling conflicts and having a full board at certain meetings and that sort of thing. So I believe this was put on the agenda just so that we can kind of get ahead of that issue and get something scheduled. I don't know if there's an agenda for the April meeting, if it's going to be a packed agenda and we want to try to schedule it for then, or the May meeting.
Right, and I think this is, yeah, fairly important because we just talked about retention of our employees and how important it is as Brownsville is undergoing this massive growth. And so this also coincides with keeping our CEO around. You know, she has started to change our direction and is continuing to change our direction. And so, you know, I thought it was important to address this as part of the compensation committee. So getting that on the schedule, figuring out, figuring out when is best is kind of the goal here, and how to approach that and what we need to do.
Yeah, I think we should, I haven't seen the agenda for April, but at least we can start the discussion and also maybe put a stake in the ground so we can close on this item. That way we can give visibility as well and complete it.
Right. So we can tentatively put it on the agenda for April if you'd
Yeah,
like.
I would say let's add it for April. If for whatever reason it needs to be pushed out, no more than a month, but let's target April's main meeting.
And I think some of the APPA material that we saw earlier is very critical to make sure we have that in there. Yeah, as a board, it's easy to continue to put things off, and then you look around and you realize you haven't addressed an issue for a year, 2 years. And so, yeah, my goal here is just to make sure we have that stake in the ground and say we will do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Very well. We'll look at putting it on the April agenda and kind of play it by ear, see if we need to move things around if needed.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Okay, and on that note, we will entertain any discussion and/or requests for future agenda items.
Yeah, nothing for me. I guess based on the first presentation, it sounds like we're going to be getting more information on some of the other categories. So just keep us posted whenever that's available and ready for us to review, and happy to look at it and give you any feedback.
Sounds great. Well, Marilyn?
I do want to ask, we're going to put the compensation committee charter on the agenda. Would you like for us to include it in consent, or do you
Oh.
want to do individual?
Consent.
Yeah, the charter can be consent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for small language change, I would hate to have a presentation on that. Well, with that in mind, thank you all for joining us, and we're going to call this meeting, because we don't have to vote on that, right?
No.
Yeah. Call this meeting to order. Thank you.